And so summer moved on to autumn. And as that season progressed on Poplar Island, so spiders' webs appeared on every leaf and bush, like silver hammocks slung to catch the morning dew, beautifully fashioned and anchored by long silken cables to stick and leaf. The tall poplar began to burn with spots of yellow, and from the distant shore came the murmur of combines in the fields of corn. But the gnomes were in no condition to enjoy the beauty of this golden autumn. They had been marooned on the island for months now, and they felt that the end was near. Their only food had been freshwater mussels and a few tiny minnows caught by hand. Each day they rested and grew weaker, their faces gaunt and haggard, their bodies thin and emaciated. They had almost lost the will to live. And around them, the leaves of autumn lay thick upon the island. Early October now, and old Dodder somehow found the strength to hobble along the shore. He was in a desperate frame of mind, and every night he'd prayed for their deliverance. But it seemed as if the great god Pan had forsaken them. He sat down on a stone and lit his pipe, and as he did so, he spotted something along the shoreline. There, at the far end of the beach, beyond a boulder, what was it? He went forward slowly to investigate. It was painted black and red, but was hard to distinguish against the background of leaves and branches. Arriving at the boulder, he peered over the edge. Before him, on the sand, was a huge steamer, a beautiful craft without a scratch on her paintwork. No smoke rose from her funnel, and there was no sign of life on board. But who did she belong to? He waited for a minute, watching for any sign of activity. But there was none, so he crept closer. It was when he was under the bows that he saw the name Jeannie Deans in big, bold lettering. Now he remembered. He'd seen this ship before. It belonged to the small boy who'd spotted them at the bridge, close to Crow Wood. He looked around. Was the boy on the island? Had he come here to find them, to capture them, perhaps? But all was still, no sign of life. A few moments later, Dodder stood upon the deck and gazed around him at the immaculate boat with its smart paintwork, coiled ropes, even 2 small lifeboats. And there beyond them was a door. Grasping the handle, he opened it. And when he looked inside, he gasped. There, lying on the deck, was a piece of wood, but not just any piece of wood. It was the nameplate of their lost boat, the Dragonfly. Dodder was confused. What did it mean? Who had put it here? Was it a trap? But he soon found out the answer, for underneath the nameplate of the Dragonfly was a photograph of the boy, and on it were written 4 words. Good luck, gnomes, Robin. So that was it, the boy. Somehow he'd learnt of their predicament and had sent his own boat to rescue them. That night, and light blazed forth from the cabin of the Jeannie Deans. Despite their weak condition, the gnomes had managed to float her, and now aboard they discovered that the small boy had sent them more than just a ship. In hiding places throughout the vessel, they came across sugar lumps, sweets, and ripe blackberries, enough food to last them until they could get back to their fishing. What I don't understand, remarked Sneezewort, is how he knew we were shipwrecked on the island. I don't think he did for sure, answered Dodder. My guess is that he found the nameplate of the Dragonfly only recently, and having seen us at the bridge, he guessed we might be stuck on the island. So he sent his ship on chance. But why did he do it? Asked Sneezewort. Why? Simply because he believes in us, answered Dodder. And in doing so, he has surely saved our lives. Next morning, the gnomes were up and about early on the Jeannie Deans. They were still quite weak, but after a good night's sleep in the ship's bunks and a hearty breakfast of blackberries and sugar, they felt their strength returning and their spirits rising. The first task, of course, was to discover how the boat was propelled, for she had no sail. But after a thorough search, they discovered under a hatch a large key, and beside it the simple instructions, wind up fully, then move lever. Couldn't be easier, remarked Dodder. Now you two take your time winding up the handle while I go forward to do some thinking. Baldmoney and Sneezewort were rather reluctant to do all the work, but Dodder was having trouble with his makeshift leg, and after all, he had discovered the boat, so they both set to. And as they worked below, old Dodder sat in the autumn sunlight, smoked his pipe, and pondered on their plans for the future. Almost 5 minutes later, and Baldmoney and Sneezewort returned from the hatch, quite exhausted from their efforts. Well, she won't turn any more, called Baldmoney. So we're all set to go. But before we do, tell us what you've been thinking about, Dodder. Dodder paused for a moment. Well, I'll tell you both. We must abandon our search for Cloudberry. Any day now, the frost will start, and if we don't make for home straight away, we'll never survive the winter. Despite all the dangers they'd faced, despite their ordeal on the island, Baldmoney and Sneezewort were reluctant to give up the search. But they knew Dodder was right. If winter caught them in the open, away from the food stores and protection of the old oak tree, they would never see another spring. But what are we going to do about Cloudberry? Asked Sneezewort. Well, we'll just have to leave that until we get home. Our friends may have news of him. Right now, the most important thing is to start on our voyage. And so it was that Sneezewort hauled in the anchor, while Baldmoney went amidships to the hatch, and Dodder took command. Stand by, he called. Right, Baldmoney, now! Baldmoney moved the lever forward. The loud whirring sound was almost deafening, and the ship became alive with vibrations. Then they sensed that they were moving, and fast. The Jeannie Deans proved to be a very fast ship and a steady one. But the gnomes discovered that every so often she would come to a stop, and they would all have to wind up the engine once more. By evening, however, the lake was behind them, and they'd moored up on the folly by the old bridge at which they'd encountered the small boy months before. And before we go any further, there's one thing we must do, said Dodder. That young boy, Robin, he saved our lives. I think we ought to find him and say thank you. Baldmoney and Sneezewort stared hard at Dodder. They'd no idea where the boy lived, and anyway, it was dark now, a most dangerous time for gnomes to be abroad. Look over there, said Dodder, pointing towards the trees. You see that light? I have a feeling that he lives there. Let's go and have a look. An hour later, and the three gnomes had not only entered the large house among the trees, but they'd actually discovered the room in which Robin was sleeping. And there, alongside his slippers under the bedroom chair, they left the nameplate of their old boat, the Dragonfly. That surely will prove we escaped from the island, whispered Dodder, and all three tiptoed out of the room. It was as they made their way back across the large garden towards the folly, however, that a sudden noise caused them to turn. They looked up, and in the window above, they saw the small boy. "Good luck," he whispered. "Good luck."